Strap in, we got a sad one today. Hi everybody, my name is Layne and I am on a goal journey quest to read all of the books on my bookshelf that are TBR. You might think this is not a lot, but it is only the bottom shelf for September. The rest of my books are in the hallway on a larger bookshelf. As a part of reading all of the books on my TBR, we are tackling the 100 books poster, not by the end of the year, but at some point throughout this entire booktube journey, we are going to read these 100 books. And that's why we're here today. I wanted to kick this off with a book that I remember loving from 8th grade in the honors English classes, and this book just stuck with me. But man, it's a sad one, you guys. I finished it last night. Let's talk about really quick the 100 book series and the big decision I had to make, which was spoilers or no spoilers. I am going to be including spoilers in review of the 100 books on that poster, solely because they are not new books. All of the books on the poster are considered classics. They are taught in schools. They are books that have been turned into movies. And I don't feel like I can do some of these books justice without discussing what happens through the book. A lot of the things that I want to talk about in the book also discuss the fate of the characters. So that being said, this is your big stamp warning. I will put this on the front of all of the videos we do that pertain to the books on this poster. There will be spoilers. It tore 12-year-old me apart, and it also tore 27, how old am I? And it also tore 27-year-old me apart when I finished it last night. So we're going to talk about Flowers for Algernon. I have seen it done as a play in competitive theater. Let's start with a brief summary. So through the book, you are following Charlie Gordon. Charlie is 32 years old, and he is an adult with learning disabilities. They drop the R word several times in this book. If I am not PC and calling him mentally challenged, let me know. Charlie has a learning disability, and the book is all told through his progress reports. So as you can see, in the first part of the book, he can't spell progress report. And this is the writing in the beginning of the book. There are plenty of misspellings, but it's all written so that you can sound it out and understand what he's talking about. Charlie Gordon is at a school for adults that also have learning disabilities, and Charlie is selected to undergo a surgery where he will be made smarter. Alongside Charlie getting the surgery, there's a mouse named Algernon. I think by the time Charlie gets the surgery, Algernon has already gone through the surgery, the same surgery that Charlie undergoes, and they begin to do the maze race. So Algernon runs through the maze and Charlie has to beat him, and that's kind of how they continue to tell if he's successful, along with Charlie's progress reports. He goes through the surgery and his intelligence begins to go higher, and way closer to the end of the book, maybe within the last 30 pages, he begins to decline and regress back to having a learning disability by the end of the book. And you watch all of this unfold through his progress reports. The language in his progress reports change, his internal thoughts change. You begin to see what he remembers. You begin to see how he feels and how his feelings change. You begin to see him understand adult relationships. He begins to inquire about love and sex and God and art and power and intelligence, and you're seeing this all for the first time through this 32-year-old man. The book is beautifully written. It is beautifully written. What are some of the things you need to know about the book? Charlie works at a bakery, and there are guys at the bakery that he thinks are his friends, and some of the guys in the bakery do absolutely stand up for Charlie. A lot of the guys in the bakery also make fun of Charlie. When Charlie messes something up, they say, "Guess I pulled a Charlie Gordon." And Charlie begins to say it too because he thinks it's funny, because he thinks they're his friends. And the guys in the bakery come back at the end. Charlie goes and gets his job back at the bakery, but the guys all then stand up for him because they've seen what he's gone through. Charlie begins to fall in love with his instructor at the school, Alice, and Alice keeps saying, no, this isn't the right time, but yes, it is kind of the right time, and no, it's not the right time, but I still feel for you, Charlie. And Alice sucks, in my humble opinion. I don't like Alice at all. Alice decides that before Charlie begins to, when Charlie kind of peaks for his intelligence, and it's right when he's about to come on the cusp and head back down, she decides, yeah, we can make love, but if you go back to the school, we can't ever talk to each other again. We'll never talk again. I'll never see you again. After he gets the surgery, Charlie begins to remember his family. Charlie has a mother, a father, and a sister named Norma. I think his mom's name is Rose and his dad's name is Matt. You can tell I'm really passionate about a book because I remember literally everybody's names in the book. He begins to pull back in these memories, and while he's remembering these things, he sees himself, Charlie, as the third person, where the narrative can get a little bit complicated because then it sounds like you're out of the progress report. You're still in his progress report. Charlie is still writing in the first person about seeing his memories and seeing Charlie in the third person. So Algernon has gone through the same procedure as Charlie, and Algernon becomes this extremely smart mouse that can do all of these mazes, and Algernon begins to get erratic. Probably a little bit after like halfway in the book, Algernon begins to run into walls and get very angry, and then Algernon dies, which takes me to the end of the book that I had no idea about. It's implied that Charlie is also about to pass away, is also going to pass away because of the same path that Algernon was on, which I did not get the first read. I read that online somewhere and I was like, well, that makes total sense, but also no, because emotionally I can't handle knowing that. I can't handle having that knowledge in my head. I can't handle knowing that Charlie's last progress report is really his last progress report, you know? I think that's a pretty good summary of Flowers for Algernon. I think I've covered everything. Let's talk about everything I have annotated. I used 5 different colors for this book. Green are moments that are significant to Charlie as a character. The first green post-it that I have for Charlie is when he gets selected to participate in the surgery to get smarter. My next one is when Charlie is working at the bakery and the guys challenge him to use the mixer, and he's like, I'm not supposed to use the mixer. Like, he knows better than to use the mixer, but then he totally goes in and nails using the mixer, and everybody looks like a big idiot, and then they look like morally horrible people for making fun of Charlie. My next Charlie moment is when Charlie is beginning to remember things. He says, this is what I can remember, and I can see it clearly, and they're all like family memories. They tend to be like more family memories. So these memories of his mom thinking he's a monster and at one point trying to kill him because she doesn't think he'll like amount to anything, and how his mom is so wary of him when they have his baby sister Norma. So yeah, a lot of the green ones are kind of flashbacks because those are big moments for him, his flashbacks, his memories, his dreams. Because Charlie's at a lab on campus, Charlie begins to talk to some of the kids that are also on campus, and they begin to engage, and he says, they talked about politics and art and God. I never before heard anyone say that there might not be a God. That frightened me, because for the first time, I begin to think about what God means. My next Charlie moment is when he is walking Alice home. They went to go see a movie. Alice sucks. Have I said that enough times in this book that I don't like Alice? But he goes to walk Alice home from a movie, and he debates whether or not to kiss her goodnight. And he's like, I've seen people kiss women goodnight in movies, but I don't know if I should. And how do you know those things? And so he really starts to come to terms, like learn about adult love. My next Charlie moment is when he sees one of the people that works at the bakery kind of step up to take control while the boss is out, and he's stealing money from the register and taking the extra money for himself. And Charlie is in a moral dilemma. My next big Charlie moment is when they go to a conference in Chicago to talk about the Gordon Algernon experiment. He really figures out that he's been there, and he's like a scientific presentation. He starts to realize that this may not have anything to do with him as a human, but for science. My next Charlie moment is when he goes to the barbershop because he found out that his dad Matt worked there, and he hasn't seen his father since he was younger because he got sent to the school, and his dad doesn't recognize him at all, and Charlie doesn't tell his dad. He kind of just brushes it off. He's like, I'm sorry, I have the wrong person. Some of my next Charlie moments, the next couple of them, are moments with his neighbor Faye when he moves into an apartment. Faye begins to make the first sexual advances on Charlie that Charlie has ever had, and these are big moments for Charlie because Charlie has never engaged in sexual acts before, and he starts to kind of think about like what sex means and if this is something he actually wants to do. Final green post-it Charlie moment is when he comes face to face with third person Charlie. It's towards the end of the book, and they begin to talk to each other about like the differences between the two of them, and he begins to talk to his own reflection about how he has changed and what this other Charlie wants from him. My orange post-it notes are the moments that you start to feel really bad for Charlie. They are things that Charlie says or things that happen to Charlie that just really hit and make you sympathize for him. One of my other ones is when the guys at the bakery mess up, they will tell the guy that messed up, like, oh, you really pulled a Charlie Gordon. And Charlie says it too because he thinks these guys are his friends and he thinks it's funny. It's a lot of people teasing him or him not understanding things. He gets bullied at the bakery a lot, so that's a lot of fun. The next one is an argument that he gets in with his sister, and it's a flashback. And his sister, it's like one of his memories that he's beginning to get back from the procedure. And it says, I recall once overhearing Norma and one of the girlfriends playing in their room, and Norma shouting, he's not my real brother. He's just a boy we took in because we felt sorry for him. My mama told me, and she said I can tell everyone now that he's not really my brother at all. I wish this memory were a photograph so I could so that I could tear it up and throw it back to her face. I went to call back across the years and tell her I never meant to stop her from getting a dog. So my next few orange ones are when he goes back to visit his mom and his sister Nora. The first one is when he runs in to meet his mom, and his mom runs into their apartment vestibule and she yells, go away, please leave him alone. Please leave us alone. And then while he's in the apartment, he goes to hug his sister, and his mom yells at him about touching his sister inappropriately, which is her projecting all of these past memories and treatments towards Charlie and his sister, where she thought because Charlie had a learning disability, Charlie would harm his sister or touch his sister inappropriately, and that all comes out now that Charlie is an adult being with his family for the first time. Those are hard moments to read because Charlie's very excited to go back and see his family, and after his dad not remembering him, now his mom is acting up. Norma's really the only person that remembers him, and when he's walking out, he says that he can't stay with them because he knows that he is going to begin his learning decline and he's not going to really have memories of them anymore. As he begins to go on to the decline in learning and his disability begins to come back around, these last three are the very end of the book, are towards the end of the book. I think my book is like 220 pages and this takes place between 215 to like the end. The one is this really sad, it's at the bottom. It says, please, please, don't let me forget how to read and write, but read and write are both spelled wrong. My last two are on the very last page of moments that you just really feel for Charlie Gordon in this book. The first one is, I don't know why I'm dumb again or what I did wrong. Maybe it's because I didn't try hard enough or just somebody put the evil eye on me. But if I try and practice very hard, maybe I'll get a little smarter and know what all the words are. I remember a little bit how nice I had a feeling when the blue book that I read with the torn cover. And when I close my eyes, I think about the man who tore the books. And he looks like me, only he looks different. And he talks different. But I don't think it's me because it's like I see him from the window. We are back on the last page of the book. And he begins to say, goodbye, Miss Kinnian and Dr. Strauss and everybody. P.S. Please tell Professor Niemer not to be such a grouch when people laugh at him, and he would have more friends. It's easy to have friends if you let people laugh at you. I'm going to have lots of friends where I go. P.S. Please, no, we're going to wait on the last line. We're going to wait on the last line. The last line tears me apart. Because Charlie is regressing, if he regresses hard enough, he has to go back to the Warren School for Children with Learning Disabilities. The last line of the book, I can't handle it. The last line of the book is, P.S. Please, if you get a chance, put some flowers on Algernon's grave in the backyard. I don't have words. The best last line, honestly. One of my favorite last lines in a book I've ever read. My blue post-its are my favorite lines in the book. The first one is, thinking and remembering is hard, and now I don't sleep so good anymore. That TV is too loud. This is right after his procedure. This is one of my favorite passages because this is like one of the passages I remembered from reading this book in 7th grade. And it's when Charlie learns how to use a comma. And every word in the paragraph has a comma after it. My next favorite quote in this book is, first, I've got to see my parents as soon as I can. I may not have all of the time I thought I had. I think that if this book were to have one line that is a synecdoche of the entire book, it is this line, and I would mark it with 10,000 more blue post-it notes if I could. Even a feeble-minded man wants to be like other men. That's it. That's Flowers for Algernon in a nutshell. So the next couple of quotations that I have are from the beginning of the burnout to the end of the book. First one is, the only question now is, how much can I hang on to? And through the burnout, he begins to face, I hope I can remember this God, please let me remember this, versus everything is cloudy and I'm spiraling downward. I have my next blue post-it. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it starts at the bottom of this page and takes up this entire page. I wait and leave myself open, passive to whatever this experience means. Charlie doesn't want me to pierce the upper curtain of the mind. Charlie doesn't want to know what lies beyond. Does he fear seeing God or seeing nothing? My next one is Charlie goes through like his memory of, one of his memories of how his teachers would ridicule him for not being able to read and not being able to do things right, and a multitude of quotations that he's heard from other people of how unintelligent he is. So those are all beginning to come back to him, and he really kind of forces and realizes that that's the point that he's coming back to. He's going to be disabled again. So this line is, I've got to try to hold on to some of the things I've learned. Please, God, don't take it all away. My last quote in this book is before the last page. So it's in his very last progress report before he says goodbye to everybody. And it's a whole paragraph. It says, then all of a sudden, I remembered some things about the operation and me getting smart. And I said, holy smoke, I really pulled a Charlie Gordon that time. And then he says he's going to be going back to the Warren homeschool. I would also put a blue post-it on the very last line of the book. My purple tabs are big moments for Algernon. First purple post-it is when Charlie beats Algernon in the maze for the first time shortly after the operation. My next Algernon moment doesn't happen for a while, and it is Algernon's behavior is becoming erratic again. So Algernon begins his steady decline. Out of the 215 pages in the book, this happens around page 149. So it takes Algernon a while to get there, but then everybody kind of starts to decline together at the end of the book. My next purple post-it is, I went back to the lab to work with Algernon. He has moments out of his lethargy. Periodically, he will run a shifting maze, but when he fails and finds himself in a dead end, he reacts violently. When I got down to the lab, I looked in. He was alert and came up to me as if he knew me. He was eager to work, and when I sat him down through the trapdoor in the wire mesh of the maze, he moved swiftly along the pathways to the reward box. Twice, he ran the maze successfully. The third time, he got halfway through, paused at an intersection, and then with a twitching movement took the wrong turn. I could see what was going to happen, and I wanted to reach down and take him out before he ended up in a blind alley, but I restrained myself and I watched. Algernon just starts to react violently to not being, and he starts to get frustrated because he's forgetting. Do I have where Algernon dies in here? Maybe I didn't mark Algernon's death, which is probably for the best for everybody involved. It's very brushed past. Yeah, I don't have it, but he says like, oh, Algernon died 2 days ago or something like that. Like Algernon died 2 days ago in the lab. Okay, so my next Algernon moment, I think is also my last Algernon moment, and it's at the end of the book. Towards the end of the book, Charlie is talking about Algernon. Out of 215 pages, we're on page 212, so Charlie's spelling is starting to go. He says, I got the idea that I would use the easy words instead of the long, hard ones. That saves time. It's getting chilly out, but I still put flowers on Algernon's grave. Mrs. Mooney thinks I'm silly to put flowers on a mouse's grave. I told her that Algernon was a very special mouse. What a kickoff to the 100 books poster for me. Let's shelve it. Next to Bootstrap. Wrong way. Next to Bootstrap Bill. Let me know if that worked for like 100 books. If it helped to go through annotations, like I did the summary and then went through my annotations. If that helped. If you want me to just talk about more like what I liked versus what I disliked. I don't dislike anything about Flowers for Algernon. It's a little bit tricky to come up with anything like that. But I'm sure that there will be things in some of the future books we have. If there's anything else that you want included, anything that you do not want included, is it boring hearing me read quotes from the book? Please let me know in the comments below, because we've got 99 more of these to do. And I want to make these as interesting for you all as possible. That's all that I've got for today, guys. We're coming to the close of September, so reading roundup will be coming probably the first week of October. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time. Bye. P.S. If you have a chance, put some flowers on Algernon's grave.